welcome to Business Ingles Podcast.
Yeah.
Today we're diving deep into communication, how it can really make or break projects.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
We are going to be dissecting this episode called How to Master Project Team Communication.
Right.
Global Leadership Skills for Managers. Really pulling out the most valuable tips and techniques for you.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
How we put so much emphasis on the technical parts of a project,
Right.
but we often overlook the power of clear and effective communication.
Right.
This episode really highlights
Yeah.
how mastering communication can really transform your project outcomes, especially when you're working with global teams.
So let's unpack this a bit.
Sure.
This episode dives into several key areas.
Okay.
Nailing task assignments.
Right.
Getting those progress updates without the usual headache. Mastering the art of talking about deadlines without the stress. Navigating escalations gracefully. Understanding virtual team dynamics.
Okay.
And this is a big one.
Yeah.
Cracking the code of cultural communication.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
So we'll explore each of these areas in detail. We'll give you some actionable strategies.
Okay.
Real-world examples that you can use right away.
Great.
And we'll also delve into some fascinating psychological insights that can help you understand why people communicate the way they do.
Right.
Which is really key to building that high-performing team.
Sounds like we are about to get a masterclass
I think so.
in project communication.
Yeah.
Let's start with something that seems simple,
Oh,
but can cause major headaches if not done right.
for sure.
Task assignments.
Uh-huh.
I've been in so many situations where I thought
Right.
I clearly delegated a task, only to find out weeks later that no one had taken ownership.
That's a common pitfall.
Yeah.
It highlights the importance of moving beyond simply being direct.
Right.
This episode introduces the idea of using empowerment language.
Empowerment language.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, it means phrasing your task assignments in a way
Okay.
that gives people a sense of ownership and responsibility
Right.
rather than making them feel like they're just following orders.
Got it. So instead of saying
Yeah.
you need to analyze the market data,
Right.
a more effective approach would be.
Yeah. Well, instead, try something like,
Okay.
I'd like you to take the lead on analyzing the market data
Okay.
and present your findings to the team.
Okay.
So you're not just giving someone a task.
Gotcha.
You're empowering them to own that part of the project.
Right.
And that subtle shift in language can make a huge difference in motivation and results.
Wow. I never thought about it that way.
It's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost like you're making them the CEO of that specific task.
Right. I'm guessing this becomes even more important when you're dealing with
Oh, absolutely.
diverse global teams.
Yeah. What might be considered direct and clear in one culture could be perceived as micromanaging
Right.
or even disrespectful in another. So the episode stresses the importance of becoming a communication DJ.
A communication DJ.
Yeah, just like a DJ reads the crowd
Okay.
and adjusts the music, you need to adapt your communication style
Right.
to the different personalities and cultural backgrounds on your team.
So it's not just about what you say.
Yeah,
It's about how you say it.
exactly.
You need to be aware of those subtle cues and adjust your approach accordingly.
To create the right rhythm
Right.
for each team member and the project as a whole.
Okay. So let's talk about these critical moments
Okay.
during task assignment
All right.
that often get overlooked
Yeah.
but can make or break a project's success.
They're crucial.
What are those?
Okay, the first one.
Is the initial framing of the task. This is where you clearly articulate
Right.
not just what needs to be done, but why it's important.
Right.
You need to connect the dots for people
Yeah.
and help them see how their individual task contributes to the bigger picture.
So you're painting the context.
Yeah.
Giving them that sense of purpose.
Absolutely.
What's the next crucial moment?
So clarifying expectations.
Okay.
This seems obvious, but it's where a lot of projects go off track.
Right.
You need to be crystal clear
Okay.
about deadlines, deliverables, and quality standards.
Got it.
Don't leave any room for assumptions.
Right.
Make sure everyone has the same understanding of
Yeah.
what success looks like for that particular task.
Yeah, I've learned the hard way
Oh, yeah.
that assumptions can lead to major miscommunications and wasted time.
Absolutely.
So clear communication.
Yeah.
Alignment on expectations is key.
It's essential.
What's that third crucial moment? Okay, so confirming understanding and commitment.
Right.
It's not enough to simply tell someone what to do.
Right.
You need to make sure they actually understand and are genuinely committed to completing it.
Got it.
This involves getting explicit buy-in from them, asking clarifying questions, and addressing any concerns they might have.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You need to make sure that they feel confident and ready to take ownership
Absolutely.
of that task.
Yeah.
I can already see how these subtle communication shifts can dramatically improve how tasks are received and executed.
For sure.
What happens after the task has been assigned?
Okay.
Everyone's working away. How do we make sure we're getting those all-important progress updates without pulling teeth?
Progress updates.
Yeah.
The source of much project management angst.
Right.
But don't worry, this episode has some brilliant insights.
Okay.
On mastering this critical aspect of communication.
All right.
We'll dive into that in the next part of our deep dive. So let's face it, getting those clear and concise progress updates can sometimes feel like trying to herd cats.
Totally.
You send out a seemingly simple request for updates.
Yep.
And what do you get? A bunch of working on its vague responses that tell you nothing.
Nothing.
Or maybe one person who sends a novel that details every minute task.
Oh, yeah. I've gotten those.
But doesn't answer your question.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, tell me about it.
This episode really nails it when it says that mastering this progress communication is one of the hallmarks of truly exceptional project managers.
Wow.
It's not about using complex tools or fancy charts.
Oh, okay.
It's about understanding the psychology behind how and why people share progress.
Right.
Or sometimes why they avoid it altogether.
So there's more to it
Way more.
than just sending out an email saying, give me an update.
Yeah, it all starts with creating an environment where your team members feel psychologically safe to share both good and bad news.
Right.
The episode talks about something called the messenger anxiety effect.
Messenger anxiety effect.
Yeah.
What is that?
This is the natural human tendency to hesitate when reporting delays or problems.
Okay.
Because we fear negative consequences.
Yeah.
Good old shoot the messenger syndrome.
Right.
I've definitely felt that anxiety myself, even when I'm on the receiving end of the updates.
No one wants to be the bearer of bad news.
Nobody.
So how do we counteract this messenger anxiety and create that safe space for open communication?
The episode suggests a brilliant but simple technique.
Okay.
Start by acknowledging the team's efforts and progress before asking for specific updates.
Okay.
So instead of leading with what's going wrong or why are we behind schedule, try starting with something like, I really appreciate all the hard work you've been putting in and I'm seeing great progress on. And then mention specific positive developments.
Right.
Now I'd like to get a clearer picture of where we stand on, and then mention specific areas you need updates on.
That's a great approach.
It flips the script completely. Instead of putting people on the defensive right away, you're setting a positive and supportive tone.
Right.
It's like you're saying, I see you, I value your work, and now let's work together to address any challenges.
It's like you're saying we're all in this together.
Yeah, exactly.
Open communication is key to achieving shared goals.
It's about shifting that focus from individual performance to collective responsibility and success.
This episode also mentions a counterintuitive technique. The most effective progress updates don't actually begin by asking for progress.
Interesting.
That sounds almost backwards.
I know.
How does that work?
It has to do with how our brains are wired for accountability.
All right.
So instead of directly asking what's the progress on X, try starting with a statement that reinforces the team's commitment to the project and their ability to deliver.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture how this would sound in a real conversation.
Absolutely. So let's say you're working on a software development project and you need an update on a specific feature. So instead of saying, where are we at with the user authentication module, you could try something like, we're all committed to delivering a secure and user-friendly platform. Okay.
And I'm confident we have the talent and expertise to make that happen.
Okay.
To ensure we stay on track.
Yeah.
I'd like to get a clearer picture of where we stand with the user authentication module.
That's brilliant.
It's reframing, isn't it?
Yeah, you're not just asking for information. You're subtly reminding everyone of their shared commitment and their capability to deliver.
And it's like you're planting a seed of accountability in their minds before you even ask for the update.
It's about appealing to people's intrinsic motivation.
Exactly.
Desire to be a part of a successful team.
Yes.
So now let's talk about a factor that's become increasingly relevant in today's remote work.
Right.
How do we get these effective progress updates when our team members are scattered across different locations and time zones?
This episode emphasizes the importance of being technical difficulty proofs.
Technical difficulty proof when managing remote teams.
What's that?
So this means structuring your communication in a way that minimizes disruptions that are caused by technology glitches, internet outages, or time zone differences.
So what does that look like in practice?
It means not relying solely on live video calls for updates.
Gotcha.
So utilize a blend of communication channels, including asynchronous methods like project management platforms, shared documents, email updates, and even voice notes or recorded videos. This way, even if someone's internet connection drops or they're in a different time zone, the information is still accessible. And everyone stays informed.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's about creating a system that ensures that the information flows smoothly, regardless of the technical challenges.
Exactly.
What about those times when you do need to have live meetings for updates? Any tips for making those more effective?
Absolutely. So when you do have live meetings, make sure that they're well structured with clear agendas and defined time slots for each topic. Make sure everyone has an opportunity to contribute regardless of their location. Encourage active participation by using interactive tools like polls, chat features, or virtual whiteboards.
Those are great tips. I've definitely been in some remote meetings. That felt like a chaotic free-for-all. People talking over each other, getting sidetracked.
Exactly.
Structure and clear guidelines
are key. This episode also highlights the importance of understanding cultural differences in progress reporting.
Oh, interesting. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yes. This is a critical aspect of global communication that often gets overlooked. For example, the episode mentions how a seemingly simple phrase, like "I'll try my best," can have vastly different meanings in different cultures.
Interesting.
In some cultures, it's a genuine commitment to do everything possible, while in others, it might be a polite way of saying, "This is highly unlikely, but I don't want to disappoint you directly."
Wow, that's a huge difference in interpretation.
I know, right?
I can see how that could lead to major misunderstanding.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're relying on email or chat communication where you don't have the benefit of tone of voice or facial expressions. So how do we navigate these cultural nuances? Make sure we're all on the same page.
The key is to ask clarifying questions. And observe nonverbal cues whenever possible. So if someone says, "I'll try my best," don't just take it at face value. Probe a little deeper. You could say something like, "I appreciate your commitment to help me plan effectively. Can you give me a sense of the likelihood of achieving this by the deadline? Even if it's just a rough estimate." This gives them an opportunity to clarify their meaning without feeling put on the spot.
That's a great technique.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, for getting a more accurate read on the situation without being confrontational.
This episode also mentions creating a communication style map.
A communication style map. What's that?
So it's a fantastic tool for understanding the nuances of communication across different cultures. It's essentially a cheat sheet that outlines how different cultures approach things, like directness versus indirectness, the importance of hierarchy the role of nonverbal cues,
Right.
how they perceive time and deadlines,
Okay.
and even their preferred communication channels.
So it's like having a cultural decoder ring.
It is.
For communication.
Yeah.
Where can we find this magical communication style map?
Well, there are some.
There's a universal one.
Okay, so there are some great resources available online that provide general guidelines for communicating across cultures.
Right.
However, the most effective approach is to create your own communication style map.
Got it.
Based on the specific cultures represented on your team.
Okay.
This involves doing some research, having open conversations with your team members, and being willing to learn and adapt as you go.
This is such valuable information.
It is.
I'm already feeling more equipped to handle
the
complexities of communicating with global teams.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. What other communication gems?
Okay, let's move on to another tricky topic.
Okay.
Deadlines.
All right, deadlines.
The episode dives into how different cultures perceive time commitments.
Right.
And how the way you frame a deadline can dramatically impact project completion rates.
We'll explore that fascinating topic after a short break. All right, let's talk deadlines.
Okay.
I've always thought of deadlines as
Right.
pretty straightforward. You set a date.
Yeah.
Everyone works toward it.
Right.
But this episode suggests there's this whole cultural dimension to deadlines
Absolutely.
that I hadn't really fully considered.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, so how do these different perceptions of time impact?
Okay, so in some cultures, time is linear and deadlines are absolute.
All right.
Being late is considered a sign of disrespect and can really damage relationships.
Wow.
In other cultures,
Yeah.
time is more fluid and deadlines are seen as flexible guidelines.
Interesting.
It's not that they don't value meeting deadlines,
right.
but they may prioritize building relationships or ensuring quality over strict adherence to a timeline.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you're working with a team across multiple cultures, you could have completely different interpretations
Absolutely.
of what a deadline actually means.
Right.
How do we navigate those differences?
So the episode offers a really cool technique called the reality check conversation.
The reality check conversation. Okay. How does this reality check conversation work?
It's a way to gently uncover the truth behind someone's commitment to a deadline without putting them on the spot or creating a confrontational situation.
I love that idea.
It's a safe space for honest communication.
Okay, so how does this work in practice?
Let's say you have a team member who consistently says yes to deadlines, but then struggles to deliver on time instead of directly challenging them or accusing them of not keeping their commitments.
Right.
You could try a more empathetic approach. You could say something like, I know you're incredibly dedicated to this project, and I appreciate your willingness to take on these challenging deadlines. However, I've noticed that we've had to adjust the timeline on a few occasions to ensure we're setting realistic expectations. I'd love to get a better understanding of the factors that might be impacting your ability to meet those initial deadlines. Is there anything we can do as a team to support you better? Or adjust our approach to ensure smoother delivery?
That's such a brilliant way.
It really is.
To approach a potentially sensitive conversation.
Right. You're not blaming or accusing. You're expressing empathy and genuinely seeking to understand their perspective.
It opens the door for that.
Yes.
Honest, collaborative discussion.
What about those situations where a deadline is simply impossible to meet? How do you say no without jeopardizing relationships? Especially in cultures where direct refusal is considered rude.
Exactly.
So that's where cultural sensitivity and skillful communication becomes so crucial. Instead of a flat-out no, try framing your response in a way that focuses on shared goals and quality while leaving room for negotiation. You could say something like, we're absolutely committed to delivering the best possible results for this project. To ensure we achieve that level of quality, we might need to adjust the timeline. Let's discuss the options and find a solution that works for everyone.
That's a great way to turn what could be a tense situation into a collaborative discussion.
Exactly.
So the episode also mentions this concept called timeline transparency.
Timeline transparency.
What was that?
Okay, so it's about being open and honest about the buffer time that you've built into your project plan.
Okay.
So traditionally, buffer time has been seen as this secret weapon that project managers use to protect themselves from delays.
Okay.
But this episode suggests a more transparent approach.
That's interesting.
Right.
I could see how that might feel counterintuitive.
Yeah.
At first.
Yeah.
Why would you want to reveal your buffer time?
So surprisingly, the opposite is often true.
Really?
When you're transparent about the buffer time that you've allocated, you actually build trust with your team and stakeholders.
Okay.
They understand that you've anticipated potential challenges.
Yeah.
And built in some wiggle room to address them.
Okay.
This transparency can actually expedite problem solving.
Wow. So when people know that there's some flexibility built in, they're less likely to panic over minor setbacks.
Exactly.
And more likely to focus on finding solutions.
It's like you're giving everyone a collective deep breath saying, we got this, even if things get a little bumpy.
What about when things do go wrong?
Okay.
You need to escalate issues.
Right. The episode section on escalation navigation offers some valuable insights on handling this effectively.
So the key is to...
The key is to reframe escalations as conversations, not panic-inducing alarms.
So instead of sending out that frantic email that says urgent, everything's on fire.
Exactly.
You take a more composed, strategic approach.
Remember, panic is contagious.
Right.
And it rarely leads to productive solutions.
Yeah.
Focus on clearly articulating the issue, its potential impact, and most importantly, propose solutions.
Okay.
When you present a problem with a proposed solution, you demonstrate competence and proactive problem-solving skills, which can really instill confidence in your stakeholders.
So it's about being solution-oriented.
Yes.
Even when presenting a problem.
This episode also highlights the importance of understanding cultural nuances in escalation language.
Right. So what are some of the things that we need to be mindful of?
What might sound appropriately urgent in one culture could come across as aggressive or overly dramatic in another. Conversely, what you intend as a calm and measured escalation might be perceived as passive or lacking urgency in a culture that values direct and assertive communication.
It all comes back to adapting your communication style to the cultural context.
Cultural sensitivity is a recurring theme throughout this entire episode.
It really highlights how understanding these cultural communication patterns can be a project manager's secret weapon.
Especially in today's globalized world.
Absolutely. And it's not just about communication within our teams. This episode also delves into the art of stakeholder communication.
The Stakeholder Spikes section emphasizes that communicating effectively with stakeholders is crucial for project success. The key is to recognize that different stakeholder groups process information differently. And you need to tailor your communication accordingly.
You need to speak their language.
You got it.
So to speak.
What are some examples of how we can tailor our communication to different stakeholders? For example, executives might be more interested in the big picture impact and return on investment. While technical teams want to dive into the details of how things work, the episode introduces a powerful technique called impact translation.
Impact translation?
Yes.
What's that?
This involves communicating technical details to executives by focusing on the implications and outcomes rather than getting bogged down in technical jargon.
So instead of explaining all the intricacies of a coding error, you would focus on...
You would focus on how it could impact the product launch date and customer satisfaction.
Speaking the language of value and impact.
Which is what resonates most with executives.
The episode also mentions emotional anchoring.
Emotional anchor.
What's that all about?
This emphasizes the importance of connecting with stakeholders on an emotional level.
Okay.
So use storytelling, relatable examples, even humor
to
build rapport
right.
and make your message more memorable.
People are more likely to support
Absolutely.
something that they feel emotionally connected to.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
In this deep dive.
Any final takeaways for our listeners?
The key takeaway is that effective project management communication is a skill that can be learned and honed.
Right.
It's about being mindful, adaptable,
okay.
and always striving to understand the perspectives of others, especially in diverse cultural settings.
Absolutely.
It's about building bridges of communication, not walls of misunderstanding.
That's beautifully said.
Thank you.
This has been incredibly enlightening.
I think so, too.
I'm already thinking of ways to apply these techniques to my own projects.
So I encourage you to experiment. Find what works best for you and your team. Remember, the most important thing is to keep learning, growing, and connecting through the power of communication.
I couldn't agree more.
Wonderful.
And to our listeners, we would love to hear from you.
Yes.
What communication techniques are you most excited to try out?
Let us know.
Leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yes.
Like and share this episode.
With your colleagues.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Into the world of project management communication.